Denver Riggleman here, your favorite former congressman, former senior technical advisor for the January 6th committee, former intelligence officer, current tech CEO. And why am I giving such a quick introduction? A lot of you know who I am. It's because I'm going to talk about insanity today, and that's the Tucker Carlson Ted Cruz interview. Bottom line up front, this interview is not worth listening to unless you want to see two crazies bang it out. I will tell you this. A lot of people, when you look at the comments in the Tucker Carlson YouTube, it's pure insanity and dribble. Some of the things that you see, like Ted Cruz accusing Tucker Carlson of anti-Semitism, true. When you see Tucker Carlson talking about Ted Cruz, about his lack of being able to answer a question, true. But what you do have is somebody who sat in a chair with already losing the debate, and that's Ted Cruz. He had lost it as soon as he sat down. I can explain that very quickly. But you also have somebody that exposed themselves as the pro-Russian anti-Semite they are. That is Tucker Carlson. So it's pretty interesting when, for me, it's very difficult for me to want to break down something where I know so much about the countries in question. When you talk about Iran, when you talk about Venezuela, which a lot of people aren't talking about at the beginning, when Tucker Carlson states unequivocally that the United States is trying to kill Maduro, the Venezuelan president, and there's no way to know that. That's literally a conspiracy theory. Not only a conspiracy theory, but a dangerous one at that. And we know about Tucker's defense of Venezuela so often, and also his trips to Russia, his chumminess, when you're talking about with the Hungarian leader Orban, right? You know that Tucker has real issues with belief systems that could, maybe classify him for mental illness, that a demon attacked him, his love of testicle tanning, you can look that up, his bizarre specials, his cackling, and his inability to really face reality. His whole baseline for argument comes from conspiracy theories. And that is why Ted Cruz had lost before he even sat down. So if me and you are arguing and we sit down and somebody automatically states something unequivocally, aliens are running the United States, we all know that. Say somebody says that and I'm like, well, that's actually not, no, we know it's proven. So let's just go on to the next question. No. State me the source and how that's proven. And the first thing I would have done with Tucker before they got into the Iranian situation, or Ted Cruz's support from AIPAC, a pro-Jewish lobby. That's American specifically. I know them. Ridiculous to think that they're specifically a foreign government lobbying firm. That's literally legally and definitionally not true. You can't source that. Because the first thing I would have done, with the Maduro question, as I get down the line a little bit, is I would have made him state the facts and sourcing for the United States trying to assassinate Maduro, the Venezuelan president. That would be we would not have left that topic until I had beat him about the head and shoulders with the intellectual million-pound shit hammer. Because I am unbeatable when it comes to sourcing. Why? Because you have to source where you're coming from. We even got to the point in this interview where Tucker's like, I'm just asking questions. Or Ted Cruz said, just asking questions, because it gets so out of bounds because there is no real facts-based policy discussion here, which has been my absolute fear, is that everything done by the United States is based on fantasy or these ludicrous conspiracy theories. So everybody's talking about Ted Cruz calling Tucker Carlson an anti-Semite, that Ted Cruz didn't know the population of Iran, which that didn't even, just north of 90 million, more or less. We don't know the exact census, but it's probably between 90 and 95 million. And as I'm listening to the insanity of it, the back and forth, the just interminable time that Tucker spent on AIPAC to try to prove that there's this pro-Jewish cabal, the Zog, which we're sure he's probably, and I can source it, right, that he is absolutely convinced that the Jews control the world. It's insane to listen to this because that's the only place you can go to with his line of questioning. When you're talking about intervention in Iran, I can tell you I have personal history with Iran. I tracked resupply of IED parts, improvised explosive devices, into Iraq from Iran. I knew about Soleimani well before we killed him in 2020. That was a great kill. Iran supports Shia militia groups in Iraq. Their state-sponsored terror, nuclear weapons, one of the worst actors, allies to Russia and North Korea. They helped supply drones to Ukraine. But the Shaheeds, I just, there's so much to know that is baseline fact that you can have these policy discussions about. But instead, we have a conspiracy theorist using a baseline conspiracy to argue with a senator who has to be a little bit wishy-washy because he has to go with Trump on something he might not agree with or agree with. Then he has to defend a position that's almost indefensible because the person asking you already has a solid rock belief in something that's unprovable. You might want to know what's my position about Iran. It's nuanced. It's complicated because it's a nuanced and complicated thing when you're talking about bombing another country or starting a war or not defending a country or supporting an ally that's complicated, or the Middle East situation where the generations, eons of conflict there, or the fact that Russia is intertwined in this intrinsically. So let's go to the second part when he accuses Cruz, and it is an accusation, that he is really working for the Israeli government and tries to twist words, which he does, but it's easy to because Ted has a difficult time even answering what AIPAC is or lobbying groups are or what they do, and he should be able to do that easily as a senator. But if Tucker Carlson says you are being paid by a lobby or you're being supported by a lobby that supports a foreign government, my first question I would have asked Tucker Carlson is, who pays you to be a pro-Russian agent? Answer. He would jabber, because he knows he is. He would try to deflect, try to say, I'm just talking about the fact that Putin is right about Ukraine. And I would say, why and how? And do you believe that other countries should invade sovereign countries that are democratically elected? I would drag him across America because he is a pro-Russian shill. You do not allow a conspiracy theorist to base a question on sourcing that is only from conspiratorial thinking. You crush them before you go to the next question. You never allow them off the topic. You go on the offensive. You rip them apart. You rip out their eyeballs intellectually. You do everything you have to do to ensure that they know that you know that they're full of shit. Not only they're full of shit, their intent is bad. Now, you can use other words beside bad, but their intent is nefarious. Tucker Carlson's intent is nefarious. He has an stated evangelical belief system and pro-Russian or pro-authoritarian belief system that has been noted through what he said and his actions. There you have it. Now, as the discussion goes along and you get into Iran, and he accuses Ted Cruz of not knowing about Iran, which I bet Ted Cruz doesn't. He doesn't even know what a Shia militia group is, probably an SMG, and you can look it up. Or how those funding lines work, follow the money. If you're looking at how you destroy things financially, I can help with that. Or destroy it by cutting the head off the snake with targeting. I can help with that. Or communications, how we actually disrupt communications. I can help with that. The thing is, there are certain things that I'm very good at. Is that knowledge perishable? Yeah. I don't remember the exact function of taking down a commercial mill network in a specific portion of Djibouti. I just made that up because I've never worked in Djibouti in that way. But I know how it works. I know the operational scale of it. And that's why I can ask the questions back at those who are conspiratorial to please source and fact the questions that you're asking with a baseline of assertion that comes from nuttery. That is where we're at, guys. We have the press playing up a debate between a politician and a conspiracy theorist nutcase. That should scare the hell out of everyone. And if you watch the debate for facts-based answers, regardless of how slippery they are, Ted Cruz actually sticks to the facts more than Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson is playing gotcha with nuttery. 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 Insanity. Specific cynicism. Playing with words. Knowing more about things that are untrue than you know about things that are. By playing with crazy to try to unlock a facts-based person. And that's why when you sit down with a conspiracy theorist like Tucker Carlson, You sit down to destroy intellectually, and you sit down to identify their own weaknesses and rip out their crazy entrails, right, onto the floor in public display intellectually. That's what you do. And if you're not willing to do that, don't sit down with them. There's no reason to. It's exhausting. You don't give them oxygen. But if you're going to get in there and you allow them to open their mouths, make sure that you're always on the offensive about their insertions and baseline. And Ted Cruz didn't do that because he wasn't prepared. And he's not a good person. That's it. Should we be in Iran? Parts of me say yes. I think we should actually take out multiple sectors of the Iranian air defense system and target their nuclear program and anybody who's involved with state-sponsored terrorism. Am I concerned that we don't have congressional oversight? Absolutely. I think Congress has abdicated their powers, and I think there should be debate before any military action and congressional authorization. In many ways, that has been absolutely left alone, and it's gone. Do I want Donald Trump making decisions and pushed into war by a country that can't finish the job? Has there been agreements beforehand? Possibly, maybe. Don't know, because I don't have the sourcing or facts for that. What I do know is that Iran is a very bad actor, and that could help Ukraine. Last point. Ukraine was mentioned, and Tucker goes after Ted Cruz on support for Ukraine. That is when you go all in. You are pro-Russian, you are pro-Putin, you're a bad actor, you're anti-American. We know that because you've been there, you've stated it, and it's sourced, and I can bring up the videos and all your writings to prove it. That's what Ted Cruz should have done. So now I'm debating somebody who's pro-Russia, pro-Putin. We're done with the interview. You're a bad actor. That's how you treat assholes. That's how you treat conspiracy theories. And that's how you treat people like Tucker Carlson. I'm Denver Riggleman. I hope that maybe I've imparted how you can actually use the million-pound shit hammer of facts to go after conspiracy theorists like Tucker Carlson. I know it's going to get worse before it gets worse, but once it's on the flip, it's up to us to make sure that America is what America should be. Thank you. Denver After Dark, out.